What's going on, YouTube? My name is Mr. Crippled, and today I'm bringing you my revised guide on Cernunnos. Now, before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to keep up with any future content, I will be leaving a link to my Discord and my Twitch in the description below. Now, I made a guide or kind of a build video on Cernunnos back during the beta some months ago, and Cernunnos really hasn't seen that many changes. There was one significant one that I do want to talk about in this video. That will kind of change how he's built and where he's played. However, he's pretty much the same as when I made that video, but I'm going to go ahead and go back through it now. Before we really get into it, let me go over his passive. Basically, he's a hunter with a boxing passive. If you walk up with his autos and you are within a certain distance, your autos will actually do cleave damage and do bonus physical damage to enemies within melee range. And it's really nice, at least in the early game, where other hunters really can't box you, since you do have a lot of sustain within your one, which again we'll go over, or a lot of damage in his one, or basically making it... It's really hard to box this character with this passive level. And then I want to go ahead and go over his abilities, again, from least important to most important. No difference than my other videos. And his least important ability is his 3, Horn Charge. Now, this can be used as a run ability. However, this ability is also a very aggressive one, given that it does give a good amount of damage for a dash ability with 100% strength scaling. So this ability can be used extremely aggressively and can be used as a good runaway move. You just dash through minions and enemy gods alike. You don't stop on them. So if they're boxing on you and you feel a little bit threatened, you can just dash right through them and mess with their aim a little bit and get some free autos. You just got to learn how to auto turn your camera around. But this ability, even though it can be very useful, it's definitely going to be the ability you level last. And to showcase this ability, the dash is fairly long. It definitely feels longer than it was in Smite 1, but it might not be. This could actually just be the normal distance. And you can actually cancel it in the middle of the ability as well. So you can like short stop, go through another hunter really quickly and immediately turn around. Most cases you're really not going to be doing that. I feel like it's going to be something you're going to be doing in the early game. But it does go pretty decently far, so it can be a really good engage and disengage. It does a pretty hefty amount of damage on hit. So try to read the situation, see what you need in the fight itself. So use his ability sparingly. Next, I want to go over his 2. Now, his 2 is his main clear ability and the ability you're going to be leveling up first. So on a technical scale, this is his most important ability, but it's his least complex. Basically, you throw out this 2. There's a little line, and then whenever it hits a enemy god or an enemy minion, it explodes, rooting the target that was directly hit by it and doing tick damage over time. Interestingly enough, this ability actually scales really heavily with intelligence rather than strength. And I'll get into how his builds work a little bit later, but just keep that in mind that this ability is heavily intelligence scaled. This is an amazing clear move. The burst damage it does on the minions plus the take damage makes it to where if you space it properly and you use it at the right angles, it could be really difficult for other hunters to outclear you. And as so, here's the ability. You can see the little burst damage where the tick damage will happen, and the little line ability. This is a little bit of a skill shot, so it can take a little bit of time to get used to. However, the damage will still do the same. The damage will basically still be the same regardless if you hit them dead in the center or if they get hit by a little bit of the splash. But you really want to try to get them hit on the line of the ability. That way you can get the root. You know, in case like in realistical terms, if you're fighting a Neath and you hit this root, she can't backflip immediately because she will be rooted for approximately 1 second. Which 1 second being unable to move against a hunter can honestly get you killed. So this ability is very important, but it is not that. It's not really all that complex. You just throw it out and does a pretty decent amount of tick damage. Again, this is without items, but the amount of damage you can get from this once you get built is kind of staggering. So use this ability as often as possible. Next up, I want to talk about his 1. Now, this ability is very complex. it's basically a stance change that gives you different abilities and different bonuses based on the stance that you're currently in. The good thing is that they made the visual effects of which stance you're in that much more recognizable. So you're not really going to be confused about which stance you're in. And I'll go over a basically go briefly over what stance each stance does. So the green stance, which is spring, you basically get a lot of extra healing per auto, and your healing does scale up depending on your intelligence. So makes it to where actually scaling intelligence with this character is going to benefit his one the absolute most. For the summer bonus damage, they did change this a little bit. Basically, they get the stance gives you bonus damage depending on which stat is higher. So if you're building more intelligence, it'll give you more damage based off your intelligence, and if your strength is higher, then it'll give you more damage based off your strength. So it really just depends on which one you're building more for. It's really beneficial to build hybrid. You're not going to get scaling from both, but either way, if you're trying to build for ability damage and making your 2 hit a lot harder, then having additional scaling because your intelligence is really high is going to be very nice. Fall, which is the yellow stance, reduces protections based off your autos. So if you hit tanks with it, they're going to be very hard pressed to defend against your autos, and he already hits extremely hard once he's up close. So he can be a really good tank shredder, but he's just not the best at it, but it is really nice in some niche situations. Same with his last stance, which is the winter stance, which applies a 14% slow, and the slow increases in scaling depending on how much intelligence you have, and the slow lasts for 1.4 seconds. So building attack speed on this character and always hitting somebody with the slow, they're basically going to be slowed forever, and they have to beat out of your autos if they don't want to die. However, this stance you're really not going to be using that much. Only because in team fights, yeah, the slow is really nice on enemies, but in most cases you're probably going to hit your root anyway. And when you're in the winter stance, you lose all the great bonus damages you get from summer or the protection shred and fall. So in my opinion, if you're gonna troll, I guess, and you're gonna play him in solo lane and build him kind of attack speed tanky, then yeah, the winter stance is probably gonna be your go-to. But in most cases, you're gonna be cycling between the first 3. And of course, I'm gonna go ahead and showcase what this looks like. So right now I'm in the winter stance. As you can see, the leaves and his shoulders and his feet are glowing green, so that's how you can tell that you're in the spring stance. If you press 1 again, now it's going to be shining yellow. This is his, I believe that is his summer stance. And the summer stance is where he gets the bonus damage depending on which stat is higher, his intelligence or his fit or his strength. In most cases, in all honesty, you're probably going to be building a lot of strength as well, but if you want to do ability-based with intelligence, you can do that. I do believe his summer stance will get more benefit from scaling off of strength, since he already has innate strength within his base stats, but you can get your intelligence pretty crazily high, or basically equal to that if you build for that. Next is the fall stance, which is going to be glowing an orangish red kind of color, which is the protection shred. And then finally, the winter stance is going to be this nice little blue color, which will slow on hits. And you can see the visual effects of them being slowed with a little blue glowing aura around their feet. And then last but not least, I'm going to talk about his ultimate. Now, his ultimate is an amazing team fighting tool, albeit it doesn't have any CC immunity. But the damage scaling on this only scales with intelligence. So if you want your ultimate to hit really hard, then you're going to be building intelligence a lot. In most cases, this is a utility ult. Basically what it does is it transforms any god hit into a boar, which disarms them. They're silenced, they're slowed, and it's basically impossible for them to run away. So if they get hit by this ult and they don't have bees, they are basically a sitting duck. They can still move around and dodge you, obviously, but the slow and the damage they take from this, plus being able to hit your root easy, or your autos easy, makes this probably one of the better team fighting ults in the game. Again, it does a good amount of damage if you scale it with intelligence, but without it, it's probably just going to do a baby amount of damage for an ultimate. But either way, it's still an amazing ult. And then finally, I do want to showcase this ult. Now, the ult is pretty huge, and you can cast it from a pretty long distance. Not as far as some mages, but the tip of the ability does go pretty far. So if they're walking into it, they're more than likely gonna get hit by this ultimate. Um, and just to show what it looks like, so there is a little bit of a casting time. The ult doesn't last too long. They don't remain polymorph for way too long, but the other effects do last longer. Like the slow does last longer than the actual polymorph effect. Still an amazing ult. It is on a fairly long cooldown, so if you want to build some CDR to really get spamming this ult, it can be very beneficial. Again, the builds how he scales really benefits both an intelligence or a strength based build. So use it, build how you want, and do not be afraid to throw this ability out. This is not, and I have to repeat this, this is not a kill confirm ult. Yes, it can be used for that, but you're mostly going to be using this to get the upper hand on enemy teams. So don't be a jerk. Don't use this ultimate to, secure a kill. Use this ultimate to engage. Do not use this ultimate as a last second kill confirm, because it's a waste of a good ultimate, because it can affect the entire enemy team. So the last thing I want to talk about is his builds. Now, like I said before, his builds are all over the place. There are several really strong builds on him because of how his abilities and his auto scale. Regardless, he's still going to be doing a lot of physical damage. However, how he does the physical damage is based on how you want to build. So, let's go ahead and go over the starter. The starter is probably the most convoluted. Like I said before, if you want to go for an intelligence build, Sands of Time or Conduit Gem is really good on him, given the fact that his 2 will hit harder. You'll get CDR. You'll get true damage. Your bonus damages in your 1 will scale even harder, or give you more benefits. Building these 2 items. In most cases, you're probably going to be building him more like a hunter. So I would think his best 2 starters are Leather's Cowl and Death's Toll. Death's Toll for the massive amount of sustain. Leather's Cowl just for the extra attack speed and a little bit of sustain and survivability if you had to be by yourself without the support. However, there is reason that you can build Conduit and Sands of Time. Just play around with these, but in my opinion, Death's Toll or Leather's Cowl is going to be his go-tos. Bluestone Pendant is also a good honorable mention if you still want to go like a little bit of ability base, but focus more on physical damage. But in all honesty, this card is kind of a waste on him, given that he only has 1 damaging ability. But there is arguments for using this. Next, I do want to talk about how you want to build, and this is going to be the longer part of the video, but I will be going over both. So if you want to build more strength, in my opinion, Devour's Gauntlet is probably going to be the better one. Again, there's an argument for Transcendence, but since its abilities mostly scale with intelligence, building this is really not going to benefit all that much. So if you're going to be going the strength build, you're more than likely going to be building into your autos the most. So Devour's Gauntlet is definitely going to be the go-to, given that it gives you a lot of sustain, it gives you penetration, it gives you a lot of strength. This is the go-to card for auto attack hunters. So Cernunnos is no different if he's building into strength. Dagger of Frenzy, definitely up there. Given the fact that it gives you an active that gives you 40 basic attack damage and 30% attack speed for 6 seconds, and 6 seconds is a long time to have something like this, so this is also really great. Executioner, Quinn's Blade, again, 2 staple items. One that reduces the protections of the enemy god that you hit with your autos, and then one directly affecting their health. So building these both together makes it to where you are a tank's nightmare. And then on top of that, if you go into your fall stance and fight a tank, you're going to shred through them. If you build these 2 and go into your not spring, but your autumn stance, I believe. No, fall stance. Whichever one it is. But the one that gives you bonus damage based off of your strength or intelligence. This is going to shred through squishies. So in most builds, you're going to be slapping this on. I think the Reaper is also a really good card to build into, given the fact that it does give you, whenever you attack somebody, you gain extra strength and lifesteal for 4 seconds. And if you kill somebody with this on, the threshold where you get the benefit increases. So this is probably one of those cards that you build early, right after Devos, or even before Devos if you're playing into Arena and you're not confident in your stacking. But this card is definitely a go-to. Next, Hasten Fatalis. This card is cracked right now. Even though it's not the same from Smite 1, where basically you just ignore the movement speed penalty, you still only ignore 50% of it. you gain 5% pen and 20% attack speed, making it to where it's a lot easier to hit your auto. So again, this could be another staple card for your strength builds. If you do want to go crit, I don't necessarily recommend it. However, Demon Blade, Deathbringer, Death Metal. These are the 3 cards that you're going to be wanting to build. Deathbringer to increase the amount of critical damage you do. Death Metal to basically give everybody within a vicinity of you extra attack speed, extra strength, extra intelligence, and plus you gain 20% crit chance, intelligence, and strength. So this card definitely scales really well into how Cernunnos wants to build. Another good card that's going to be a hybrid is Broggy's Harp. I mentioned this card in my previous video, Cernunnos, given the fact that it gives both intelligence and strength scaling with attack speed, and it makes your autos do magical damage on top. 5 magical damage base plus 2 per level, so you get 45 extra magical damage on your autos for building this item. Plus your strength is already going to be hitting incredibly hard. So this is going to be a go-to for both the intelligence and the strength build. So remember this card. Now, if you want to build for intelligence, that's a little bit of a different story. I, personally, would recommend building Book of Thoth. It gives you a lot of mana. It gives you plenty of intelligence, so you can be spamming your 2 a lot more often. It gives you pen. And your intelligence will scale higher based off of how much mana you have. So this card is going to extremely boost how much damage your 2 is going to do and your ultimate. I highly recommend building this card. Bracer the Abyss is also really good on him, given the fact that it gives intelligence, attack speed, and cooldowns. And whenever you hit an enemy god or a jungle boss with an ability, you gain 15 basic attack damage for 6 seconds. So this does proc when you hit an auto while you're in your 1 stance. So the second you get your 1, you're going to be proccing Bracer of the Abyss every single time you hit an auto. So this card is extremely busted on him for an intelligence build. Demonic Grip. Whenever you do basic attack damage, you gain penetration. Again, really great ability to make your abilities hit harder. Obsidian Shard, Spirit Deso, the World Stone, those are good. I wouldn't necessarily recommend building World Stone or Spirit Deso since you're still a hunter and you want to build a little bit of attack speed. But if you really want to be an ult bot, those cards are really good honorable mentions. Again, Death Metal gives you crit, intelligence, and strength. I would recommend building this card regardless on either build if you're trying to go crit. And then just building Deathbringer behind it, and then possibly that Hasten Fatalis. You want to try to build something that's a lot more hybrid, but if you're trying to go more intelligence focused, either way, Death Metal is still going to be really beneficial to you. A good example of a build on him is probably you would go Death Toll for the sustain, right? Then you would, if you want to build more intelligence, then you immediately want to build his Book of Thoth. If you want to build more strength, then you're immediately going to build into Devos. Me personally, I would rather go into the strength build, but if you're trying to troll a little bit more, then you can forego the Book of Thoth, and then immediately probably into Bracer the Abyss to get the attack speed out the way. Broggy's Harp is really expensive. However, it is something that you can build early, but I would probably go Demonic Grip and then into Death Metal. And then after Death Metal, you can go into more crit, get Deathbringer, and you're going to want some pen in here because this doesn't really have a lot. So I would probably round it out with either Executioner or Kinsblade. Personally, I'd probably go Executioner. And then just stack the cards as you go, but yeah, this build still hits pretty freaking hard, and this is kind of just a do stuff build. Kind of just to play around, but definitely play around to scaling. Don't be afraid to switch it up. This character is basically the poster boy of how they wanted Smite to be played with how their scalings go, and this god is definitely really fun to get into. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to help. Again, if you want to keep up with any future content, just click on the links to my Discord and my Twitch in the description below. Thank y'all for watching, and y'all have a nice rest of your day.